My name is Hannah Scott. I'm 36 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed loving family meant quietly carrying them even when they were crushing you. I know better now. The strange thing is, the moment everything finally broke apart didn't happen during some screaming match or dramatic betrayal. It happened over roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and a stupid ceramic rooster clock ticking above my mother's kitchen door. Sunday lunch. That's where my older sister Melissa decided to humiliate me publicly. And for a few seconds, everyone at that table thought it was funny. Melissa arrived 40 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a designer handbag I recognized immediately because it used to belong to me 5 years earlier. She swept into the dining room like she always did, loud and distracted, apologizing without sounding sorry at all. Her husband Derek followed behind her, looking tired as usual, and their son Noah trailed after them, clutching a handheld game console. I should have noticed the mood immediately. The smirks. The exchanged glances. The way Melissa kept looking at me like she was waiting for something. But I didn't. I was too busy trying to survive another family gathering without becoming emotionally exhausted. We were halfway through lunch when Noah looked directly at me and said loudly, "Mom says you're selfish." Then everybody laughed. Not awkward laughter. Not uncomfortable laughter. Real laughter. My cousin Brandon nearly choked on his drink. Aunt Denise covered her mouth, trying not to grin. Even Derek laughed under his breath, while Melissa sat there pretending to look embarrassed. That was the moment I realized this wasn't random. Melissa had planted it. Maybe not word for word. Maybe she hadn't rehearsed Noah like an actor in a play. But she absolutely wanted this moment to happen. And everyone else was enjoying the show. I remember sitting there, staring at my plate, while something cold slowly spread through my chest. Because suddenly, every sacrifice I'd made for Melissa over the last year felt disgusting. All the emergency phone calls. All the "please don't tell anybody." All the rent payments. All the nights I stayed awake wondering whether Noah had enough food in the refrigerator. And now this. I could have laughed it off the way I always did. That's what everyone expected from me. Quiet Hannah. Reliable Hannah. The sister who fixes problems and absorbs humiliation without complaining. Instead, I slowly put my fork down and looked directly at Melissa. Then I smiled. "Well," I said calmly, "I guess that means you won't miss the $6,000 I deposit into your account every month." The room died instantly. Not silence exactly. More like the air got sucked out of the house. Derek stopped moving completely. My mother blinked at me in confusion. Little Noah looked around the table with wide eyes, probably wondering why his joke suddenly felt dangerous. Melissa froze with that stretched fake smile she always wore whenever she got caught in a lie but hadn't figured out an escape yet. I kept my voice calm. "Actually," I added, "it's more than 6,000 some months. Utilities, groceries, daycare, emergency expenses. I've honestly lost track." Nobody laughed anymore. The only sound was the ticking rooster clock over the kitchen doorway. Tick. 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 Finally, Aunt Denise leaned forward and asked bluntly, "Wait, Hannah's paying your bills?" Melissa immediately started shaking her head. "It's complicated," she muttered. But Mom interrupted her sharply. "No," she said. "Answer the question." Melissa looked trapped. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and slid it across the table. Transaction history already open. Melissa Carter, $6,000. Every month. Clockwork. Then the additional transfers. urgent medical payment, rent assistance, utilities. One transfer labeled, "Please don't tell Derek." Nobody spoke. Derek slowly leaned back in his chair, like the entire foundation beneath his marriage had just cracked open. Melissa's fingers twitched toward the phone before she stopped herself. Then came the explosion. "I'm so sick of this," she snapped suddenly, voice trembling. "I'm sick of everyone acting like Hannah's some kind of saint just because she throws money around." Nobody responded. That only made her louder. "She does this to control people. She wants everyone dependent on her so she can feel superior." I stared at her quietly, while years of memories replayed in my head. Melissa crying because Noah needed medication. Melissa sobbing because their power was getting shut off. Melissa promising every payment would be temporary. Melissa calling me her best friend while secretly poisoning everyone against me. Mom finally told her to stop talking. Aunt Denise looked horrified. Derek still hadn't said a single word. And honestly, that hurt almost as much as Melissa. Because maybe he didn't know everything. But he knew enough to laugh at me. I picked up my phone, slipped it back into my purse, stood from the table, and thanked Mom for lunch. No dramatic exit. No yelling. I just left. The strangest part was how numb I felt afterward. I sat in my car outside Mom's house, gripping the steering wheel, waiting for tears or rage or something. Nothing came. Just emptiness. And clarity. For the first time in over a year, I opened my banking app and canceled every automatic payment connected to Melissa. No more $6,000. No more emergency rescues. No more carrying her life on my back while she mocked me publicly. Let her talk. Let them all laugh. Let them finally see what happens when I stop saving her. The next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls. 8 from Melissa. 3 from Mom. 1 from Derek. The rest from random relatives who suddenly felt involved. I ignored every single one. Instead, I opened my laptop and forwarded every payment receipt, every bank statement, every transaction confirmation directly to Mom. No explanation. No message. Just proof. By noon, Derek texted me. "I didn't know. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. Because maybe he didn't know every detail. But he sat there laughing anyway. That mattered. Around evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. Mom. Holding a pie like this was some awkward neighborhood misunderstanding instead of emotional betrayal. I opened the door halfway. She looked exhausted. Older somehow. "Did you read what I sent?" I asked. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "Melissa told everyone you stopped helping her because she refused to lend you money." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. Melissa hadn't just lied. She rewrote reality completely. She turned herself into the generous sister, and me into some greedy villain cutting her off over money. And everybody believed her because believing her was easier than asking how a woman with no stable income kept carrying luxury handbags. Mom looked genuinely shaken. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she admitted quietly. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "You don't have to choose sides," I said. "But don't expect me to sit quietly while people applaud my humiliation." Then I closed the door. 2 days passed. Then the internet war started. It started with a vague Facebook post from my cousin Vanessa. Some dramatic nonsense about people pretending to be generous while secretly destroying families. That was all it took. Within an hour, relatives were fighting in the comments section, like wild animals thrown into an arena. Screenshots started circulating. Someone uploaded partial images of the bank transfers between me and Melissa. I never found out whether Mom or Derek leaked them. Honestly, by then, I didn't care. The truth had already escaped. There was no stuffing it back into the box. Then came the messages. Old classmates.
Distant cousins.
People I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly demanding explanations, like my private suffering had become public entertainment. Some supported me. Some accused me of humiliating Melissa on purpose. Others just wanted gossip. I ignored almost all of them. But Melissa wouldn't stop calling. 6 times in under an hour. The 7th time, I answered. She didn't say hello. "You ruined my life," she hissed immediately. Her voice sounded wrecked, raw from crying or screaming, or both. I leaned back against my kitchen counter and closed my eyes. "No," I said quietly. "You ruined it yourself." That only made her louder. She said Derek was staying in a hotel. She said his parents knew everything now. She said Noah had started asking questions about why people online were calling his mother a liar. Then finally, she got to the real reason for the call. "I need you to fix this. Not apologize. Not explain. Fix." Like I was still the same Hannah she could drain endlessly while insulting me behind my back. Like I still existed, only to clean up the disasters she created. I told her no. For a second, there was silence. Then she exploded into screaming so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "You think you're perfect," she shouted. "You think money makes you better than everybody else." I hung up. And for the first time in years, I felt something dangerously close to freedom. But Melissa was never the kind of person who accepted losing quietly. When she lost control, she escalated. 3 days later, she showed up at my workplace. I work in corporate finance, calm environment, structured environment, the kind of office where people speak softly and panic privately. So when the HR director knocked on my office door asking if I had a moment, my stomach dropped immediately. I followed her down the hallway, trying to mentally replay every recent project, every email, every expense report. Then I walked into the conference room and froze. Melissa sat at the table with a thick stack of papers in front of her. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were bloodshot. Before I could even speak, she pointed at me and announced to the HR director, "She's been embezzling money for over a year." For one insane second, I almost laughed. Instead, I sat down slowly and asked, "What are you talking about?" Melissa immediately shoved printed screenshots across the table. Our personal bank transfers. Every payment I had ever sent her. Covered in red pen circles and handwritten notes, like she'd transformed into some conspiracy theorist overnight. "She launders money through vendor accounts," Melissa said breathlessly. "She funnels it through her company and hides it under fake payments." The HR director looked deeply uncomfortable. Because even she could tell Melissa was spiraling. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "these appear to be personal transactions." Melissa slapped the table hard enough to make the papers jump. "She's hiding the evidence." I stayed completely silent. I didn't need to defend myself. Melissa was unraveling all on her own. Eventually, security arrived. And while they escorted her out of the building, she screamed the entire way down the hallway. "You destroyed my family. You'll regret humiliating me. You think you've won." Every employee within hearing distance stared openly. I sat there, motionless, long after she was gone. The HR director asked softly if I needed to go home early. I told her I was fine. I wasn't. That night, Melissa uploaded a 10-minute video to Facebook. A full emotional breakdown filmed inside her car. Mascara running down her face. Voice shaking dramatically. She talked about betrayal.
Manipulation. Emotional abuse.
She claimed I forced money onto her to make her feel dependent and weak. Then came the part that really hurt. "She's jealous of me," Melissa cried directly into the camera, "because I have a husband and a child and she doesn't." That line spread everywhere. 20,000 views in 2 days. People from high school shared it. Old family friends commented sympathy. Even a few coworkers found it. I shut my phone off completely that weekend. Sat alone in my apartment with the blinds closed, replaying years of memories over and over again. Melissa crying in my arms after Noah got sick. Melissa promising she'd pay me back someday. Melissa swearing she appreciated everything I'd done. Now suddenly, I was the villain. The manipulator. The lonely, bitter sister. By Monday morning, I thought things couldn't possibly get worse. Then Child Protective Services called me. I remember staring at my phone in disbelief, while the woman on the other end calmly introduced herself. An anonymous report had been filed regarding Noah. Possible neglect. Possible substance abuse.
Emotional instability.
They wanted to ask me a few questions as a family reference. And immediately, I knew. Someone close to Melissa had made the report. Maybe Derek's family. Maybe one of her former friends. Maybe someone online. I didn't ask. Part of me didn't want the answer. The CPS agent sounded kind but professional. She asked if Noah seemed safe around Melissa. That question nearly broke me. Because despite everything, the lies, the manipulation, the public humiliation, I knew Melissa loved her son. Noah was the only truly innocent person in this entire nightmare. And honestly, he was the only reason I'd kept helping her financially for so long. So I told the truth. I said Melissa had been under extreme emotional stress recently. I said her marriage was collapsing. I said she was unstable and overwhelmed. But I also said Noah had always appeared fed, safe, and deeply loved. I refused to destroy her completely. But I refused to lie for her anymore, too. The next day, Melissa went nuclear again. Instagram stories. Crying videos. Photos of herself holding Noah while accusing unnamed evil people of trying to steal her child. Then she looked directly into the camera and whispered, "Hannah, I hope you're finally happy." By evening, my voicemail box was overflowing. Some relatives begged me to reconcile. Others accused me of cruelty. One of Melissa's old friends left a message saying she might hurt herself. I didn't answer anyone. Because every single time I tried saving Melissa, things only got worse. But something unexpected started happening. People began turning against her publicly. Not quietly.
Loudly.
Aunt Denise uploaded screenshots proving I'd financially supported Melissa for over a year. Then Derek finally broke his silence. His statement sounded like it had been approved by 3 lawyers and a therapist. He confirmed he had left voluntarily. He confirmed Melissa refused counseling repeatedly. And he confirmed she had threatened me multiple times after the family lunch incident. That changed everything. Suddenly, people stopped laughing about Noah's selfish comment at Sunday lunch. Now they were asking why Melissa used her own child to publicly humiliate the sister secretly keeping her family afloat. Even Mom finally snapped. She sent one message into the family group chat. Just one sentence. "You owe your sister an apology before you lose her forever." Melissa never responded. But 3 days later, she appeared at my apartment. And she brought Noah with her. It was a little after 8 at night when I heard the knock. Not aggressive. Not frantic. Just 3 slow knocks against my apartment door. I almost ignored it. By then, I was emotionally exhausted from weeks of drama, accusations, and strangers online treating my family collapse like reality television. But something about the silence between those knocks unsettled me. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole, then froze. Melissa stood there holding Noah's hand. She looked terrible. Not messy in the dramatic social media way she'd been presenting online. This was different. Real exhaustion. Real collapse. Her hair was pulled back unevenly, like she'd tied it up in a parking lot mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her oversized sweatshirt hung off her frame like she'd lost weight too quickly. And Noah, God, that hurt the most. He stood there in dinosaur pajamas, clutching the old stuffed lion I bought him when he was 2 years old. His little shoulders drooped with exhaustion. He didn't look scared. He looked worn out, like he'd spent weeks trapped inside adult chaos he couldn't understand. I opened the door halfway, but didn't say anything. Melissa avoided eye contact at first, then quietly said, "I have nowhere else to go." Her voice barely sounded like hers anymore. Not sharp. Not manipulative. Just empty. I looked down at Noah. He stared at the floor, silently. I asked where Derek was. Melissa swallowed hard before answering. He filed a restraining order this morning. I felt something twist painfully in my chest. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Just grief. Because despite everything, this was still my sister standing in front of me. And she looked broken. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You win, Hannah." The bitterness in her voice stunned me. Even now, after the public meltdowns, the lies, the collapse of her marriage, she still thought this had been a competition. Like I wanted to defeat her. Like I enjoyed watching her life burn down. I stared at her for a long moment before answering quietly. This was never about winning. She laughed softly then, but it sounded hollow and exhausted. "Then what do you want?" I looked at Noah again. His little fingers tightened around that stuffed lion. And suddenly, the answer became painfully simple. I want him to be okay. Melissa's face crumpled for just a second. Only a second. But it was enough for me to realize she knew exactly why I couldn't turn them away. Not because of her. Because of Noah. I let them inside. Just for the night. Nothing more. Noah immediately curled up in the guest bed without even changing clothes. Within minutes, he was asleep, clutching the lion against his chest like he was afraid someone might take it away. Melissa sat silently on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, while I made tea neither of us drank. The apartment felt unbearably quiet. No screaming. No accusations. Just 2 sisters, sitting in the ruins of everything that used to exist between them. At one point, I caught her staring blankly at the wall. "You should hate me," she whispered suddenly. I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I didn't know what I felt anymore. For years, I thought Melissa was selfish.
Manipulative. Irresponsible.
And she was. But sitting there looking at her now, I also saw someone drowning. Someone who'd spent so long lying and performing and blaming everyone else that she completely lost herself somewhere along the way. "I don't hate you," I finally admitted quietly. That seemed to hurt her more than anger would have. She turned away quickly, wiping at her eyes. Neither of us slept much that night. I sat at the kitchen table, replaying years of memories in my head, while the refrigerator hummed softly behind me. Every emergency call, every excuse, every moment I convinced myself helping Melissa meant loving her. But somewhere along the line, helping became enabling, and enabling became destroying both of us. Around 3 in the morning, I realized something painful. If I kept rescuing Melissa forever, she would never change, because she never had to. By morning, I already knew what I had to do. Melissa looked embarrassed standing in my kitchen the next day. Smaller, somehow. She poured herself coffee but barely touched it. Noah sat quietly eating cereal while watching cartoons, blissfully unaware of how fragile everything around him had become. I walked over and placed a folded piece of paper on the counter in front of Melissa. She frowned slightly before opening it. Inside was a list. 3 women's shelters, 2 outpatient therapy programs, and 1 inpatient mental health clinic. Melissa stared at the paper silently for several seconds, then finally looked up at me. "You want me gone?" I crossed my arms slowly. "I want you to get help." Her jaw tightened immediately. "I don't need rehab." "I didn't say rehab." "You think I'm crazy?" "No," I said calmly. "I think you're falling apart." That finally broke through her anger. She looked down at the paper again, blinking rapidly. For a second, I thought she might start screaming at me again. Instead, she whispered, "What happens to Noah?" The fear in her voice was real and heartbreaking. I answered honestly, "That depends on you, Derek. CPS, the court maybe, I don't know." She looked at me desperately then, almost like she expected me to save her again. Fix it again. Carry everything again. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "I won't abandon him," I said softly. "But I can't keep carrying you." Silence filled the kitchen. Noah laughed quietly at something on television in the other room, completely unaware that his mother's entire life was balancing on a single moment. Melissa folded the paper carefully with trembling hands. Then she nodded once. No screaming. No manipulation. No dramatic accusations. Just exhaustion. 2 hours later, she left with Noah. She didn't hug me. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say goodbye. She just walked out carrying her overnight bag while Noah held the stuffed lion under one arm. I stood at the window watching them disappear into the parking lot, feeling strangely hollow. That night, Derek called me. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "She came to the hotel," he said immediately. His voice sounded tired too. "What happened?" There was a long pause. Then he said something I never expected. She handed me the clinic information. I sat down slowly at my kitchen table. "No yelling?" I asked quietly. "No fight," he answered. "She just said, 'I need help.'" For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Derek added softly, "She checked herself in this morning." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not because everything was fixed, not because I trusted the future, but because after years of excuses and manipulation and destruction, Melissa had finally taken one honest step on her own. 6 weeks passed before the noise finally started fading. No more screaming voicemails. No more emotional live streams. No more relatives calling me for updates like they were following episodes of a television drama. Just silence. The peaceful kind, this time. Melissa stayed at the clinic, apparently voluntarily. That surprised everyone, especially me. I didn't visit her, partly because I still wasn't emotionally ready to see her, and partly because I didn't want recovery to become another performance between us. but Derek sent occasional updates. Short messages. She's attending therapy consistently. She started group counseling. She's taking it seriously. Every update felt strange to read. Because for years, Melissa treated accountability like poison. The idea of her willingly sitting in therapy and admitting fault felt almost impossible to imagine. Meanwhile, Noah stayed full-time with Derek. And slowly, little pieces of him started returning. His teachers said he smiled more. His grades improved. He stopped having emotional outbursts at school. One afternoon, Derek texted me a picture Noah had drawn during class.
Stick figures.
One was me. One was Noah. And between us was the stuffed lion. No Melissa. I stared at the drawing for a long time, then quietly put my phone down. I never asked Noah why she wasn't there. Some questions are too heavy for children to answer. Mom changed too after everything happened. Before all this, she constantly pressured me to keep the peace because family mattered more than pride. But now, she stopped defending Melissa completely. Sometimes she came over carrying containers of soup or pasta, and we'd sit quietly in my apartment eating dinner without discussing any of it. No guilt trips. No emotional manipulation. Just silence. And honestly, after months of chaos, silence felt sacred. One evening, while washing dishes, Mom suddenly spoke without looking at me. I should have stopped her years ago. I froze slightly. She rarely admitted fault. I dried my hands slowly before answering. She wouldn't have listened. Mom shook her head. "No," she whispered. "But maybe you would have stopped trying to save her sooner." That stayed with me long after she left. Because she was right. I had spent years confusing sacrifice with love. Every check I sent, every emergency rescue, every humiliating moment I tolerated. I called it loyalty. But sometimes, loyalty without boundaries becomes self-destruction. And maybe Melissa sensed that too. Maybe somewhere deep down, she knew I would never abandon her completely. Until I finally did. The strange thing about hitting emotional rock bottom is that clarity sometimes grows there. Not forgiveness. Not healing. Just clarity. I started sleeping again. Started laughing at work again. I even went out for drinks with coworkers one Friday night and realized halfway through dinner that I hadn't thought about Melissa once in over 3 hours. That felt enormous. Like breathing normally after years underwater. Then the letter arrived. Plain white envelope. No return address. But I recognized Melissa's handwriting immediately. My chest tightened the second I saw it. For almost 10 minutes, I just stared at the envelope sitting on my kitchen counter. Part of me didn't want to open it, because I wasn't sure I could survive another emotional explosion from her. Eventually, I unfolded the letter carefully, and immediately realized something was different. No dramatic language. No accusations. No manipulation. Just honesty. "Hannah, I'm sorry. Not just for the lunch, not just for the lies online, for all of it. You spent years trying to protect me, while I blamed you for the parts of myself I hated. I think somewhere along the way, I became angry that you could survive things I couldn't. So I made you the villain instead. That wasn't fair. The clinic asked us to write letters to the people we hurt most. At first, I didn't want to write yours because I thought you'd never forgive me anyway. Maybe you won't. Maybe you shouldn't. But you still saved Noah from watching me completely destroy myself. And maybe you saved me too. I'm finally starting to understand what everyone else saw all along. I wasn't drowning because people abandoned me. I was drowning because I kept refusing help while demanding rescue. Thank you for loving Noah enough to tell me the truth. If you never speak to me again, I'll understand. I folded the letter slowly after finishing, then sat there staring out my apartment window while the city lights flickered softly outside. I expected anger, or relief, or closure. Instead, I felt something much more dangerous.
Hope.
Small.
Fragile. Terrifying hope.
Because for the first time in years, Melissa sounded real. Not rehearsed. Not manipulative. Just tired and honest. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some wounds don't disappear just because someone finally apologizes. And trust? Trust rebuilds slower than people think. But later that night, I opened the drawer beside my bed and placed the letter inside instead of throwing it away. That choice mattered more than I wanted to admit. A few days later, Derek dropped Noah off at my apartment so we could spend the afternoon together. We built a blanket fort in my living room, ate grilled cheese sandwiches, watched cartoons. At one point, Noah crawled into my lap holding the stuffed lion and asked quietly, "Mommy's getting better now?" The question nearly shattered me. I brushed his hair back gently and smiled. "I think she's trying really hard." He nodded seriously, like that answer was enough. And maybe it was. After he fell asleep on my couch later that evening, I sat there, watching him breathe softly under the blanket while memories replayed inside my head. Sunday lunch. The laughter. The humiliation. The screaming. The collapse. All of it leading here. To silence. To boundaries. To consequences. To the possibility of change. Maybe Melissa and I would never fully repair what happened between us. Maybe some parts of our relationship were permanently broken. But for the first time in years, I no longer felt responsible for saving her. And strangely enough, that's what finally gave both of us a chance to survive.